You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
All right, brother, we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, Bob Strause?
Hi, Gabe.
I'm here with Bob. Bob Strause was a neighbor of ours a long time ago.
A few years, yeah.
Yeah, and we're in this beautiful park in Three Rivers, Texas. You can hear the birds and the wind, but we're going to pretend it's the ocean.
It is the ocean.
One thing I've been meaning to ask you for like 20 or 30 years now, Bob, because we're getting pretty old.
Yeah.
Where in the world did you find Reggie?
Man, that is a great freaking blindside question. Let me think a word.
So people know Reggie was the weirdest dog, best dog I ever had. He was part Chow,
Yeah.
part German Shepherd,
Yeah.
part Basset Hound.
Yeah.
So he had a huge head, huge body, huge feet, big curly tail, purple tongue, and little bitty legs. But
He looked like he was not from this world. God, y'all had him forever, right?
we did. You gave him to us as a puppy.
And I felt bad about doing that because I was like, this is not what I expected this dog to be. Do y'all want it? And y'all were like, hell yeah.
Oh, he was super adorable. We didn't think he was going to stay that small.
I wish I would have kept him after he grew up because he was so unique looking.
And he was a genius, man. I tell you what, Dad, we had another dog that was named Kirby. Kirby was an idiot. Kirby ran off. We couldn't find him. So Dad literally said, Reggie, go find Kirby. Reggie took off running, and Dad followed him in the car, took him across town, and found Kirby. That dog
Reggie
was a
found
genius.
Kirby?
Reggie found Kirby.
I didn't know that.
But, man, he was a great dog.
God, he was unique looking. Unique's the kindest thing I can think of to say about Reggie. If you saw him like running through the fence, you would think he was half his body was in a ditch or something. Like he just looked like he come out his leg looked like a freaking centipede.
His belly was probably 2 inches off the ground.
It was, dude. He's like one of those lowered cars.
I have 2 dogs right now. The one's named Tank. She's a female. We didn't name her, but she behaves like one. And then we have Beaumont. Beaumont's real smart, and I will tell both those damn dogs to their faces they ain't half the dog Reggie was.
I've seen you post something about Reggie. Reggie's still alive, man. It's crazy.
He's in our hearts, man.
Yeah, because y'all still talk about him, and that was a long time ago. Sam was just a baby, and she's 30 now, so
Jeez.
to still be talking about a dog, you know what I mean?
Dude, he was the best thing I ever had. I mean, I love my wife, but Reggie is still the best thing I ever had. So,
well, I'm glad we were able to bestow that gift upon y'all, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, one thing I want to talk about is Bob was a man. I don't even know how to put it. Bob's a musician.
Yeah.
Bob's a lot of things, but one thing that Bob's been is a musician. And Bob had his own band for a while.
Yeah.
With a few other fellas. They're called the Pear Rats.
Yeah.
But where did you? Everybody loves music, right? And or if you don't, you're an idiot. But it's kind of like, at what point did you decide you didn't just love music? You were going to be a musician. How old were you when that was happening? What took place that kind of led to that?
I mean, if you go way back, it was when I was 14 or 15. I don't know why. I still don't know why. I had to get a guitar and I had to learn how to play it. And I drove my lovely mother to the point where she just went and got me one.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the only thing up until recently that I ever stuck with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She knew my pattern was to. I was all about bells and something new, and I would get tired of it and I'd lay it down. So, judging by the way I was about everything else, she was sure I was going to take that guitar, play it for about a month or two, and then never pick it up again. But I don't know why. I taught myself to play out in the country. Wasn't nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Ride the bus home, pick up the guitar, and then it just like I never set it down. And I don't know. It was just like I was always trying to start a band. It seemed like my whole life. And I remember me and Greg Maxwell and a guy named Gary Looper when I was a freshman in high school. We would set up in Greg's dad was a welder there in George West, and we'd set up. Greg had a drum set, and I would always find a way to throw a little band together. You know what I mean? And the Parrots thing, I had no idea it was gonna explodes a little much, but
I would say you exploded, Bob.
yeah, I mean, what's successful, I don't know. It lasted about well over 12 years, 13 years. We traveled overseas twice. I mean, I'm on somebody else's dime,
Yeah.
and it's landed a jet in Saudi Arabia. I mean, what's the odds of some dude from Georgia West that?
I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I played in Qatar. We stayed on Al Udeid Air Force Base for a week, playing for the troops.
Really?
Memorial Day week of 2012. Then following year, we played a big festival in Paris, or not in Paris. We flew into Paris, then took planes, trains, and automobiles literally to the French Alps and played this festival in the frickin' foothills of the Alps with the Mavericks and some big time dudes in front of there. There were 7,000 French people out there in the crowd in the middle of nowhere. Yeah,
That's pretty cool, man.
around castles and stuff. So yeah, just
Did
looking
y'all
at.
get to do any tourist stuff, or did y'all just play and bounce?
Well, this will probably lead right into what else you wanted to talk about. I didn't do much because I was severely withdrawing from methamphetamine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was kind of this weird memory. Now Rod and Johnny and Joe, they all were out. I mean, we were in these crazy places. We stayed in Lyon, which is a very historical, old freaking French city, that sits between these two majestic rivers, and it's just this crazy thing. I stayed in my room withdrawing
Really?
for about, we went a week early, and about the last 2 or 3 days, Rod came to, he was like, dude, you've got to get out, man, and look,
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this ever tried to kick that crap, it's about the third or fourth day is awful.
Yeah.
So anyways, I figured out in true alcoholic drug addict form how to throw a buzz together that would get me out, So I drank a couple bottles of wine, and anyways, I got out and I did sightsee the last I got to see some stuff, some cathedrals, and by the time we left, by the time we left, we'd been there for 6 days, and I'd gotten over the hump of the withdrawals, and we played the festival, and we had a layover in Paris before we flew out, and we paid a taxi driver €100 each, and we said, show us everything you see on TV. So he did, man. We went to the Eiffel Tower, we went to the frickin' arch that I don't remember how you say it.
Triumph or something like that, right?
The one that Napoleon marched their ass through, and and then we went and we saw that. We saw everything, the Louvre. We went and took pictures there, and I was feeling pretty good by then.
Yeah.
But I missed most of it withdrawing, which is fucking just ridiculous. But it's part of what got me.
When did you first get exposed to meth or drugs in general? Was it around that same time, or was it something you've been dealing with for a while?
Oh yeah, man. I figured out early on that I liked being high. I was smoking weed by the time I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
So, and it just progressed. I was just one of those that never was quite high enough, and one of those that I never said no to whatever you had.
Yeah.
And that just went on for over 3.5 decades over that. So yeah, it first started. The first beer I drank out of my dad's ice chest when I was 13.
Yeah.
And I felt it. Once I felt it, it was like, oh.
Really? I my dad drank a lot when we were kids, and I'm sure I had a drink at some point, but I never developed that taste for beer. I'm a sweets guy, man, and it didn't have that flavor for me, so I didn't. And, I think I smoked pot twice, and it wasn't good for me because it literally put me to sleep. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm a fat, out of shape guy. I'm ready to take a nap whenever I slow down, So it wasn't like something that I felt any sort of benefit from. So, I just kind of never never indulged you
I
very
can
much in it.
I can relate to that because it was I I had to function somewhat, you know.
Yeah.
Running a band, me and my brother when we were building homes, working at the refinery. It got out of hand. That's why I quit. You know, I told everybody I wanted to start my own business, but the fact of the matter is, I was running around inside Diamond Shamrock over there doing lines of dope
Really?
while I was on duty. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I knew eventually something was going to cause me to get a UA, or they did random UAs, so I just knew my time was going to be up eventually. So rather than everybody find out who I really was, I just said, you know, I can't imagine being here for 3 more decades till I retire. I'm going to start my own business building cabinets, and I did, and I knew I wouldn't UA myself. So
Yeah.
I
I remember y'all building a shop right outside of town.
yeah, we did well too until I snorted that, and
Oh,
then that's why I started the Parrots, because it was always to stay. For one, I couldn't let anybody know who I really was, because who I really was a dope addict, man.
Yeah.
And I was good at hiding it, you know, until I wasn't. Until it finally caught up with me, thank God.
So how did you guys end up? Who did you pull in to start the Parrots when y'all were first beginning?
Rod and Chris, because we had the band, the Defiance, back in the a metal band back when I was 20, 19.
I remember you being in a metal band. Yeah,
And we were good. You know,
Yeah.
we were really good. I tried to pull the old Defiance band back together. Michael, God rest his soul, he's passed away. The drummer, he passed away from cancer. But he had found God, and he was playing in the church, and I found out I couldn't talk him into it. But I got Rod, and I finally talked Rod into it, and Chris into it. Chris Nelson and Rod Dawes, who I'd played with for years, and they came in. And then Johnny Aguillon, Ron Lopez had found him. Johnny was a good drummer, and he played with us on and off the whole entire time. He went with us to France.
Yeah.
But the main thing was get Rod and Chris initially, because I knew they were good, you know, and I didn't want to sound country like everybody else. I wanted it to be edgy.
Yeah, and y'all definitely had that sound.
Yeah.
You know, I know some of your music was very, I guess the tempo was very high, and a lot of beat music, and a little bit of, it was Texas country, but it had some rock flair to it. But the one song that kind of stood out to me, or that actually, I guess when I hear it kind of makes me watery-eyed a little bit, is the Porch Swing song.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd that one come from?
Just my daddy Tom, my great grandfather on the Strause side, Tom Strause. He would they had a porch swing. I don't know if you remember that house or not. My brother lived in it for a while right there by Hardgraves.
Yeah,
At the end of the street. Remember that? So that was Daddy Tom's house.
Okay.
And there was that swing out front, and him and Mama Josie would sit and they would swing. And so it wrote itself because of the part about him staring at the wall, and sometimes he'd holler out her name when he would he would walk from that house to my granddad's shop, and he would answer the phone in the afternoons. And he had a recliner there, and he chilled out in it. But every now and then he would I guess he'd be thinking about her, you know, and I'd hear him go, Josie. And it just always tripped me out that I know he was running around in his memory, you know.
Yeah.
And he was thinking about her, and back when she was alive and they were young. I mean, that song, really, all I had to do was rhyme every other line as far as the content of it.
No, that's probably, I have a lot of your songs I really like, but that one in particular, even just listening to you talk about it right now, it makes me want to get a little watery-eyed, because, you know, it sounds like something that we're always chasing something, right? And we never feel like life is full enough, so we're always chasing something else. But when you hear that song, you know, they had the relationship with each other, and that's all that was important at the end.
Oh, dude, it was. I can just remember that we'd go over. Back when I was really young, we would go to on the Pew side. We would go to Mama Pew and Daddy Pew's on one Sunday, and then the next Sunday we'd go to Daddy Tom and Mama Josie's. But they had recliners that faced each other. They both dipped Sweet Garrett snuff, and they would put it in their mouth, and they would puff like a train.
Oh, really?
For a few minutes, that powder would come out every time they'd say something, especially if they popped one of their peas, you know.
Yeah.
Making the potatoes and freaking red shit going everywhere. But I remember the smell of that. I just remember they had their little matching spit tunes, yeah, just they were all they needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a big part of him was gone when she died, and he lived for a while, man. I still say if they wouldn't have put him in the nursing home, he'd have lived to be a fucking 110. But
Really?
he made 95, 94.
That's good.
But yeah, I've sang that at a few funerals, man. People, that song, you're not the only one. That song kind of tripped people out.
No, that's a big one, man. And I think to be able to create something like that, you know, I don't think I'm the most creative person, but to be able to create a song like that, you know, several years later you can sit back and people go, man, you know what, wherever you were in your headspace, wherever you were, you know, physically or mentally, you created that at a certain point in time, and it still affects people.
Yeah,
and that's huge, man.
And it always will. It's just one of those songs that I don't know. It's happy, it's sad, it's all that in one. For me, it's happy because it makes me remember them.
Yeah.
And, their little quirks and their ways they had, and
I will say this, for me, it's kind of like it when I hear it, or even when I think about the song, it's kind of like it really puts life in perspective, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of like, you know, I'm always chasing $1 at work, or I'm always trying to get a project out, or, you know, my wife's always giving me the we needs kind of thing. We need to do this, we need to go there, we need to take care of that. And it's like when I hear that song, you know, it kind of like reminds me to cut out all the BS. You know, things I don't need things that aren't important, you know. And so when I hear that song, it really reminds me of that. And I don't do the best job at cutting the BS out, but it helps to realign me at times. I mean, there's other songs that do that too, but that one in particular is one that you made that's huge, man. I listened to it on the way over here because I was playing it in the truck on hands free, of course. But man, it's a beautiful song. If you ever get a chance, go to YouTube and listen to Porch Swing by the Pear Rats. I'm sure you can find it in other places too, but I always find it on YouTube.
That's actually one of our ones you can get on all the CD stuff, CD Baby. I don't know. We had a guy that actually took care of business on the first two albums. Then we started trying to take care of our own shit, and which wasn't a great idea. So it gets a little sketchy after the next 2 or 3 are harder to find than the first two.
Where can people find your stuff?
Shit, I don't know. Just Google it.
I
know you can find it on YouTube, if just the audio of them or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
all the albums you can find there. We've got an album that we cut that still isn't released called Cinco de Psycho that's got some really good songs on it.
I remember a song coming out or something, because I remember seeing the logo. It was like a skull, right?
Yeah,
It had a bunch of fives all
We've
over
never
it.
released that.
Really?
No, dude.
Okay. What's the
it's
reason for that not getting released? Legal stuff or
drugs
just
and alcohol.
Gotcha.
Seriously, that was kind of where I never did. The reason I got meth, you asked how I was introduced to that. It was because I wanted to act like I was functioning and at a high level. So if I smoked weed all the time, I would get sleepy and groggy, and I looked high and I looked lethargic. If I mixed the two together, I'd look just like a normal person, you know. So I ran around strung out on meth for a long time, and no one knew it.
Yeah.
Or at least I thought they didn't. The people that knew, but a lot of people didn't, you know, because I wasn't one of those that had all those weird mannerisms when I was high, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I didn't jerk around, my jaw didn't slide all over the place, and I would often wonder why. I'd look at people like Jim Davis, you know, that guy, just freaking energetic dude.
Yeah.
He'd be out there just working his ass off, and I'd wonder how does he do that, you know, without drugs? And that used to just perplex me. Why? I wish I could be like that, but I can't, so I'll just give me some more dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the whole thing got screwed up, just like a lot of things. Now, in hindsight, everything spiraled out. So, of course the band did. I was a control freak. I didn't want, the less people I had involved in it, my circle, the more, you know. It's just a weird thing, and I tried to handle the business side of it and did a very, very poor job of it, and included a bunch of people that were also strung out on dope to help me do that. So our first two albums, The Rat Now and The Holier Than Thou, Bill Green and BGM Music took care of that. It was all done proper. Everything was, our songs were registered at BMI. It was, there was everything was copywritten. There was piles of paper to sign. Our stuff after that, it was just done very shoddily.
Yeah.
Great, the music was great. I think the Rat Outta Hell album with Ozona and all that, that's still my favorite album. But
Oh, it's good music, man.
a lot of people, you can't find it because of just shoddy management.
Yeah.
Mm.
YouTube, Bob.
YouTube. It's on YouTube. You can get it on YouTube.
You know, whenever you guys would come to town, or we'd be in the Corpus area and we'd see you guys playing, you know, we'd go check it out. And my wife always loved watching y'all. And you know, like everybody else, you know, people like to brag that they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, kind of thing. And so we'd always go catch you guys. And I never quite understood what was going on. I had an idea, but I try to keep my opinions to myself at all times, right? And I know one time we'd seen y'all at Sam's Burger Joint, and a couple times actually. And I think the last time we saw you at Sam's, I don't think Rod was there.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had to play bass.
yes,
Yes, it was fucking awful.
and you know, you could tell something was going on.
Yeah.
You know, I want to say even the show was shorter.
We opened for Buster Jiggs that night.
I think so.
Yeah, thank God it was an opening slot.
and you know, you could tell something was different. And wasn't quite sure what was going on, you know. And then I don't even know how much more time passed between that and then I'd seen that y'all weren't touring anymore, so I just assumed everything ends, everything comes to an end, so that's what it was. But was that part of the drug issue that was kind of...
Probably indirectly. I mean, I was Rod and I mean, we're great now. We talk every day. Because him and I have been best friends since we were in high school. And
I've never met him, but
Rod does.
Seen him in the shows. He seems like a good dude.
I mean, I love him dearly. He's like a brother from another mother.
Yeah.
But there's just so much went into it. It was just dumb drama bullshit. And we were going hard there for a while, and he maintained his job with Bay running a crane. And I don't know how he would pull it off, but that guy just like never had any time off. I think part of it was he got tired of it.
Yeah.
He got burned out because it was a lot of work for him, a lot more than it was for me, because that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
I was managing to squeak by.
So he was still doing a full-time gig?
Yes. So
Gotcha.
I still to this day don't know how he would do it. There for a while they were working at Valero full-time, Bay was, and we would pick him up in the van on the way out on a Thursday, and we would drop him back off at his pickup in the parking lot, and he would just sleep for a few hours and go to work Monday morning.
Really?
Yeah, and he would do that for a long time. And
he's an energetic dude. Like when you saw him perform, he didn't look like a sleepy bass player.
He wasn't on drugs either, you know.
Really?
No,
because he was very energetic, you know, moving around, and he had a lot of energy.
He also raised his kids, man. I mean, he raised Caleb and Casey and Kimmy. I mean, as a single father during all that too.
Jeez.
Isn't that something else?
Yeah.
I mean, that dude's is my friggin' hero. I mean, as far as just a good guy, you know what I mean? And he put up with a lot of shit from me, because that roller coaster of watching me go, he's the one who knew it, saw it. And I think that may be part of it too, that he just couldn't deal with me, because they're at the last one. My drug use really escalated and got ugly. I was doing things, shooting up. Once that started, it was downhill very bad after that. I would have told you, if you'd asked me 3 years before I'd shot up, if I'd ever shoot up, I'd have told you were an idiot. But lo and behold, I was 50 years old with a needle hanging out of my arm.
Really?
All day, every day. So,
and it was always meth?
Yeah. And so everything's affected by that, right? If I look back, my whole life was affected by drugs. But this was really where it became obvious, was because I started booking shows closer, because I didn't want to get too far away from my dealer, because I could not function if I didn't have my drugs. And it ended up just...
So it was that drastic?
Oh, yeah. I
Wow.
mean, it was there at the last. It's hard to believe that's even me, because February the 15th will be 4 years of complete abstinence from anything. I haven't had a drink.
Really?
I haven't
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's, I thought it would suck horribly, abstinence, not, what am I going to do without my dope? It's been great, and it just completely changed my goals, what I do now. I mean, I work in the recovery field. I've been very out there about my recovery. I'm not one of those anonymous guys that just goes to the meeting and don't say my name. Fuck, I want to tell everybody that I'm clean, because if I can do it, literally anybody can do it.
So who was it or what was it that kind of started sending you on the path to recovery?
A deputy at Swanee Switch at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pulled me over and popped me with an 8-ball of dope. And so that set on me on this course.
You were still in the band at the time?
Yeah, we were still playing, but it was just very scarce. I had a really good band at the time. None of the originals, but they were really good, all of them. And keeping them busy was becoming very. Oh, it was tiring, dude. Because I just wanted to stay high, but that was the only way I could pay for it.
Yeah.
And anyways, we were still playing, and I got popped in October of 15. I didn't go to court until 17, so I went on this crazy it's my last hoorah buzz for 2 years. It's like court never would come.
Yeah.
Man, I got real bad off during that 2 years.
So between getting busted and your court date, you were hitting it pretty hard?
The hardest ever.
Really?
Yeah, because I kept thinking any minute now I'm going to have to stop.
Yeah.
So, but I don't today, and that's the mentality, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to get really loaded, because it could end any day, literally, and it took it 2 years, but that was what got me on the path, was getting put on this intensive or this pre-sentence investigation for 2 years. I had to go to probation officer for once a week and take a UA, so they could kind of see where I was at, what they needed to do with me, right?
Now, this was after court? You had already been to court?
After court.
Okay.
And so this was in 17 and January, and I failed every drug test they gave me.
Really?
Yeah, my numbers actually, the amount in my system went up. That's when it finally dawned on me, dude, you may have a little bit of a problem here, you know. It's
Legally, what were they threatening you with?
Oh, they were going to send me to San Diego for a year to save P, and I had friends of mine that were in prison, of course. Anyways, but that said, if it comes to that, you're better off going to jail than going there. So that's what she threatened me with that. But she didn't threaten me. She told me in 1 month, when you're sentenced, you are going to save P, because you are. She didn't say it, but you're fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
You got problems.
So what is that safe P?
It's a lockdown prison recovery thing. They have one in San Diego, and it's awful. There's like the success rate of you coming out of there, you'll just be more institutionalized when you get out of there, from what I heard. And so I called my lawyer again to try to get out of it, and he basically told me I couldn't. I was screwed up, you know. He's like, Bob, the dude loved me, you know. It's like we were talking about your dad. Just because he was drunk didn't mean he was an asshole, and I wasn't, you know. I could make you feel really bad for me if I wanted to. I was good at manipulating, and my lawyer felt bad for me, but there was literally nothing he could do because I couldn't pass a drug test.
Yeah.
So he put me in touch with Tiffany and Troy Walters, and it was just a God thing, dude, at that point. That's where something bigger than me intervened and
Who's
opened
Tiffany and Troy? What are they?
Tiffany, I knew from 18 years old. She was the girlfriend of the drummer that died of cancer.
Okay.
And she had gotten really strung out and went to prison 2 or 3 times. But we had the same lawyer. I hadn't talked to her in years. He gives me this phone number and says, your only chance, you got a month, call these two. Troy, her husband, was facing 25 to life.
Wow.
For his 16th felony.
Jeez.
Tiffany had been in and out of prison, but Troy had about 9 years sobriety, was a counselor and stuff at this point. Tiffany had about 4 years clean. Anyways, I called and I couldn't believe it was her. She was like, Bob. I was like, Tiffany. And I told her what had happened. She said, oh, honey, we got to get you into treatment. So literally I went from thinking everything was cool to sitting in Charlie's place in one day. And I stopped on the way out to Charlie's place and did a huge fucking line of dope, and then went to treatment. And that was February the 15th, 2017. And put together 30 days of not using for the first time since I was 15. and it felt good, right? I just,
Did you have any withdrawals in the beginning?
yeah, because they put me through a medical detox, which I didn't know that I could do all this. This was all state funded. I didn't have to pay anything. I just thought I'll never be able to afford. There was times, Gabe, that I would set. You can't not be 50 years old, have a daughter that's using drugs. Your whole life is about drugs, and start pondering on where this is going to end.
Yeah.
This has to end at some point. Every time I try to quit, it doesn't work. So apparently I'm never going to be able to quit. It sucks so much more to withdraw than it does for whatever it's doing to me while I'm high, that I'll just take the high. And anyway, so to get to that, find out there was a way out of it, to get there, to detox and get through that 7 days of detox and feel better than I'd felt in a long time, dude. Like it, what I don't remember, I don't know what they gave me. It's like I went in there on a Wednesday and I came out of there on a freaking the next Wednesday and felt pretty good.
Really?
And then I went straight into residential. And
is all this local, or is this like in the Corpus area?
Well, Corpus, yeah, Charlie's place. It's like saved a lot of people's lives. And so I don't know, man. It was time, and I finally what I deemed hopeless, come to find out wasn't hopeless. Started taking suggestions from some people. That there was a guy that used to be a bandito, and I knew of him, and he had 22 years, and he was a counselor there, and he taught steps class in the morning, and I respected him. You know, I knew that he'd been there, done that. I just asked him a lot of questions, and he ended up giving me a lot of advice and sending me in the right direction to how he managed to put 22 years together, and we're really good friends to this day. And I just did what he said. I knew how to stay high and screw up my life, but I didn't know how to live life without using drugs.
Do you think that's the first time that you'd ever encountered, I guess, help from people that had the same experience as you had?
Absolutely.
That was the point, I guess, where you kind of could relate a little bit better.
That's the only way. They say in the NA literature that the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. Right. Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob figured that out in the 30s, that psychiatrists weren't fixing alcoholics, they were just dying, and it was frustrating to doctors and stuff because they could fix everybody else. They could help them with their mental this and that, but they could not stop people from drinking.
Yeah. But
they figured out that we can help each other, right? And it works, and it's worked since the 30s. And so
that's where this all started. This program, I guess, the 12 steps, that's from the 30s?
Yeah, it started in the 30s, man. Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, you can Google them too, man. They're the ones that saved millions of lives. That's where NAs come from. It's where Gamblers Anonymous, everything goes around those 12 steps.
We got we're in the park, so we got some babies running around. They're super cute, but
not a care in the world, man.
They have no idea what we're even talking about. No. So are those steps, can you apply those to other aspects, or is it just drug related?
That's the hidden thing. I just wanted to stop using dope, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so they told me that if I want to, you need to do these steps, and they'll teach you how to live your life without needing drugs. I didn't know what that meant, right? So yeah, I mean, there's not a person on this globe that couldn't benefit from working those things, man. I mean, because it changed it's like I put on this other set of glasses and I see this it's the same exact world, but it just looks completely different to me. The perspective on everything, you know.
So what made you not? I haven't been in the position that you've been in, but to me, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, here's 12 steps you need to follow," how did you convince yourself that you were going to follow steps and that it just wasn't a bunch of crap? Because I'd imagine there's got to be a lot of people that go, "Hey, I see these 12 steps, and yeah, you're presenting them to me, but right now I'm high, and that's a bunch of crap to me."
I looked at those guys. I'd go to the meetings that they told me I needed to go to. Probation told me I needed to go to. I would look at them, these guys that had decades of not using, and the way that they were going through life, much more carefree than I was. Like, nothing was a problem, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing was worth drinking over. Nothing was worth using over. Nothing was worth holding a resentment against somebody over. Nothing was so important that they needed to be miserable about it, right? And so you ask them, how do you do this? I did it because I worked the steps. So I was convinced. Okay, well, apparently I need to work the steps. So that's all I needed, was just an example of somebody being way happier than me and more chilled out than me. You know?
So did you did you get that right away, or did it take several meetings for you to go? Like, were you turned off to it in the beginning, or were you super receptive to?
No, I was receptive because it didn't take you don't have to get to 12 to start going, wow, there may be something to this. Step one, right? I'm powerless over my addiction, and my life's become unmanageable. Okay, I had no problem admitting that, because I was in the position I was in. I was on probation. I couldn't stop. You know, there was plenty of examples of yes, but I also didn't realize there's a lot more to that. I'm also powerless over everything else outside of this nose in the world. I can't make you act a certain way to make me feel good.
Yeah.
You know, I can't make the people.
And I think a lot of times, just that one in general, I think a lot of times we all feel that we can somehow do something that'll manipulate somebody to treat me differently, you know. And
Look, my wife's running around the track on lunch. Hey, babe.
Hello. How you doing? I'm good. We're just chit chatting. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Hi, babe. So we're right in the middle of this.
That was a beautiful
Jogging.
kiss. That was a beautiful kiss.
That's my little soulmate right there. Hey, look, I didn't recognize you. I swear to God, because you've lost so much weight, I didn't recognize you. I love you too. So yeah, that was okay. I was 52. I was convinced I knew everything. What else are you going to teach me at 52? That was my attitude when I went into Charlie's. Like, this is just bullshit.
Yeah.
So I did have that when I first went in. But just that, I never thought of that, right? My sponsor told me that, you know, you're powerless over everything in the world but you and how you react to it.
That's
Think about that. Wrap your head around. It's like counting stars, dude. It's like you can't wrap your head around it at first.
You know, I always joke that I'm super arrogant, and I have joked because I am super arrogant. But it's like, I think if somebody walked up to me and told me that today, I'd be like, no, I have more control than what you think I have. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just me lying to myself.
It is.
But that's got to be tough, especially when you're in a position where, you know, you're coming off of addiction, or you're coming off of a drug or something, and somebody's telling you this. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of that's got to. She's really fast, by the way.
Dude, she doesn't mess around. She can run. I'm not kidding you. She can do 4 miles without stopping.
Yeah, she's way down the road.
I can go about a mile now.
Just so you guys know, she's way down the road. But I mean, to me, that's kind of it's almost like somebody challenging me, right?
You're gonna take it like that at first. I promise you are. But the fact of the matter is that, for one, it's hard to argue with a compassionate person. Yeah. These guys have already been around so long that they're not taking my bullshit bait.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they've heard it all before.
They've heard it all before to nauseum. I'm not the one that's going to come along and say that one thing that makes them go, wow, I never thought of that.
Bob just changed the whole program.
Since it's been intact since the 30s, and Bob just derailed it.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not going to happen. And so they just smile at you, you know, like, you're going to be all right, you know. Yeah. You just keep coming back. That's what they say. God, I hated that. Just keep coming back.
Yeah.
And you'll get it. You know what I mean? And so just humor us and try this and see what happens. And so I did, kind of maybe to prove them wrong that this won't work for me. And right out of the gate, the whole powerless, and how much I sat and pondered of how much effort I put into trying to make everybody else act a certain way so I could feel a certain way. It's a lot of work that's really it's all futile.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was I love the way Reagan puts it. She says, I just stay happy for no good reason.
Yeah.
I don't, my world, I didn't get happy because the world got right. The world got right because I got happy.
Yeah.
And so, if I can not take things so seriously, realize that people aren't doing anything to me, they're doing something for themselves, they're trying to do the best that they know how to do at any given time. I mean, Adolf Hitler was convinced he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As awful as that was, he was convinced he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. And so once I could look at my father that way, right? My father was my good reason to use for years and years and years. He did do some stuff that wasn't exactly stellar father material,
Yeah.
but he had his own problems. And once I looked at my father with empathy rather than hatred, it made me feel different. It felt there's a different chemical that goes off in your brain when you feel empathy than it does when you feel hatred. And the empathy chemical feels way better.
Yeah.
You don't need to dull it. It feels good, right? So it's all about my feelings and how I feel, and that's how it was for years. So I felt I liked the way dope made me feel, and now I like the way my higher power makes me feel. I like the way forgiveness feels. I like the way helping somebody else that thinks their life is hopeless feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I put that on something that I've seen 7,000. I remember when Rod and I looked out over that 7,000 French people, and I thought, man, this is it. You know, wow. It didn't feel as good as that guy going, so there is hope. There is somewhere, there's a way out. And going, yeah, and meaning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know for a fact that if you do this, you're going to be all right, and I'll help you. And
You know, one thing that I kind of I don't really stalk you on social media, but I look at a lot of your stuff. And, you know, when I saw that you were posting about the NA stuff, which is
Narcotics Anonymous.
Narcotics Anonymous, you know, to me, it was kind of like, it was like, it kind of blew my mind a little bit because I sat there and I like people. I like watching people. I like hearing people's stories. And I sit there and I knew you had been to France, and I knew you'd been, I didn't know about the Middle Eastern trip, but I knew you'd been to France, and I was thinking, here is a guy that stood on stage, had everybody facing him, yelling, cheering, singing his songs, you know, playing all these shows, and he's here at this huge festival in France, and now he's in Live Oak County doing NA. And my first reaction was, that's the shit, Bob. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's kind of like there's a lot of work that goes into, I've never done it, but there's got to be a lot of work that goes into becoming a performer, the musician, getting yourself there. But if you're producing and you're making music and it's good music and people are buying it, there's going to be people who are pushing you in that direction. Hey, let's do this. Let's move there. Let's go there. Everybody's, you know, hey, the Pear Rats, let's go check them out. You know, but when you go from that to almost a 180 to where you're, and I'm assuming in a little building with a handful of people that are trying to fight addiction, and now you're on, so to speak, a smaller stage, talking to a smaller group of people, but you're probably making an even bigger impact than you did in front of that 7,000 people.
It is. It's dude, look, it's a completely different dynamic. It's a completely different place in my life. But it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. And this feels like what God put me here for. Music didn't. Music became work, right? It became an arduous task at some point, and I wasn't up for anymore. One thing that some guy said to me that blew the top of my head off at lunch one day was that he's the happiest he's ever been in his life. So every shitty thing that happened and he did along the way was necessary to get here. And if he hadn't done one of those shitty things, he wouldn't be here. So how can you look back on anything that's happened in the past with anything but gratitude? I was like, damn, that just did away with all my regrets. That did away with everything. Yeah. Because it took literally every dumb thing I did, or I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so it was all necessary. It makes me relatable to people who do dumb shit, which is all of us.
Yeah.
and it's I don't know how to put it into words. There are no words. It's happy, dude. Like for the first time, and it took me half a century to get happy on the inside. And then the outside's, it's all gravy. It's all gravy.
You know, I think I've been thinking about you, and we talked a little bit about my dad and some of the things that he'd been through, and I'm super excited for you. I'm super excited for him because I don't feel that I've ever been in a position where I've been at rock bottom, right? I think my dad has. I feel like you probably have.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's scary because we don't ever know how we're going to react when we get to rock bottom. And, we always get into these low spots where we're blue or we're sad or things aren't going our way. But that's not rock bottom, right? Rock bottom is the lowest that you're ever going to be in your life, and people always talk about falling down and getting up, and that's a beautiful thing. But when you hit rock bottom, it's getting up isn't enough. You still got to climb out of that son of a bitch, right?
Yeah.
You still got to get out of there. You still got to crawl. You're still covered in mess. We talked about my dad, when he cleaned that pump up,
Yeah.
and he realized that was God pulling him out of the graveyard, or the junk pile,
Yep.
and making him better. And it's like, that's huge, And so for people like you, for people like my dad that have been in positions where you're at rock bottom, Dad quit cold turkey. Dad never, we talked about it recently, and he said, I said, did you ever feel like you wanted to have another drink again? And he said, you know what, yeah, I did. He said, but I realized it was the devil trying to pull me back into what I was in, and I didn't want to go there anymore, and I didn't go, And so Dad, I think, is a rare case where he did it through his faith in God, and I was going to say on his own, but not really on his own. He had my mom, he had his family, he
Absolutely.
had his faith in God. But it's like to be able to know. I mean, if you ever slip, to know that you've been battle tested, and to know, what, if I ever made a mistake or ever did something that maybe it wasn't drug related, but I made a mistake in another arena, another realm, I know that I'm capable of pulling myself out of that junk.
Absolutely.
And it's inspiring because I don't know that most people get tested the way you have been, right? And to be able to know that you've got it inside of you to pull yourself out of that shit. And granted, yeah, there was a lot of people along the way, a lot of help, but you were strong enough to pull yourself out of that. And I'm sure every day it's a struggle. Every day there's probably something on your plate that makes you think a certain way, but for the most part, I'm inspired by people like you because you've been in front of 7,000 people, but you're doing better work now because you're saving a couple. Every time you have a meeting, every time you talk to somebody, just telling me your story. There's stuff that I didn't know. I knew that the band wasn't playing anymore and stuff like that. And, you see stuff on social media, you put two and two together.
Yeah.
But to see you now, I mean, you look great, man. You look healthy. I know you were in the hospital recently, and then we see videos of you jogging 2 miles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the shit, Bob.
Man,
that's awesome.
That whole thing that happened to me it's still, the doctors can't explain it. I mean, she won't mind me sharing. My daughter, you've known Sam since she was a little bitty. She's struggling really hard with her addiction, right? And so her and I, when I got clean, naturally you want your kid clean, but
Yeah.
her bottom, everybody's talking about bottoms, like everybody's bottom looks different, but it feels the same,
Yeah.
right? When you're there. So a guy may be diving in a dumpster that was a CEO of a company, and everybody goes, God, that's got to be the bottom. But if it's not, it's not to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, my daughter, all these things were happening, right? So to her, negative things, and I'm begging her, God, come on, just if I can get clean. And she wasn't having it. So one day, it was August the 5th, right there at that house.
This year?
Yeah. So we're working on getting custody of my granddaughter from her, and so she's having to come over for a supervised visitation. You know, very weird dynamic for me
Sure.
and her. You know what I mean? Me and Sam have been inseparable since she was a little kid. She's my little girl. Anyway, so there's all this going on. We get out of the car. My 7-year-old granddaughter and her are walking behind me, and dude, I just no chest pains, no nothing. I just fell into the backyard, and my heart stopped for over 30 minutes.
Really?
They shocked me. It took them 9 shocks to finally. They had a minute and 15 seconds left, and they were going to pull the sheet
Really?
over me. And they tried one more time, and my heart took off.
Wow.
They landed the helicopter right in the field across the street from my house. They put me on the helicopter, took me to university. So I come out of this thing. They run all the tests in there, and there's no blockage, there's no heart disease, there's no nothing, right?
Really?
Like they put a defibrillator in, so in case it ever goes out of rhythm again, it'll shock it and make it go back into beat right.
So you have one in right?
Yeah, I have it. It's right here. You can feel it in a subcutaneous defibrillator. It's not in my heart, nothing like this. So so I had my checkup with my cardiologist, the 90-day checkup a while back, and she's like, I guess we're just going to chalk this up as freak deal. Go live your life, do whatever you want to do. I was taking my blood pressure every day for 3 months, and it was always just idling, you know. It was just all spot on. Did my blood work, everything's in order, so they don't have any idea. And I told her, I said, I know this goes against all your science, but the only thing that I can tell you is that was my daughter's bottom. If she hadn't been there that day, a couple things. If she hadn't been there, the timing of it's nuts. It's like counting stars or freaking thinking where the end of the space or end of space is. You can't do it. If I start thinking of all these things that for me to be sitting here talking to you, if I'd have just been home by myself, I'd be dead. No one would have known. My wife would have come home from work. My daughter was there. She was literally 2 feet from me when it happened, and that spawned her bottom.
Really?
It was the moment she thought, what am I doing here? I'm all this so I can stay high, all this because I don't want to give in. So she has been clean for 140 days today.
Man, that's outstanding.
And so I told that doctor that, and she's like, I said it was a God thing. I said I told God for 3 years I would do whatever it took for my daughter to see the light and get clean. That's what it took.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine. She said, well, we don't need to see you for a year. It's just an anomaly. It's
a new birthday for the two of you, man.
Yeah, so she could get her feet under and work her steps. She's moved in with us. Her and my granddaughter live with Reagan and I. It's all we talk about is recovery. She wants to work in the field that I do now. I work for Camino Real Community Services. In the meantime, we're opening a nonprofit.
Is that Camino Real? Is that in Jordanton?
Mm-hmm. Well, the main office is in Lytle. They have
Okay.
offices all the way to Eagle Pass, and I'm a recovery coach there. The first one they've hired. It's a new thing with them.
And I guess if somebody's looking for recovery, they can find them online.
Yeah, go to Camino Real, and it's intensive outpatient treatment center in Jordanton, and if nothing else, Facebook message me. You know, that's the reason I'm out there about my recovery. It's not to brag; it's to give people hope, because I never knew where to go. You know what I mean? I had no idea there was anywhere to go, and that's why I do it, is to tell everybody there is a place to go, and if you're tired of that shit, I'll help you.
Yeah.
And I can't do it for you, but I can do for you what was done for me. And you know, I don't know, man. It's a day-to-day thing. I do what they tell me to do. I want to put together 30 years, you know.
Yeah.
So I asked the guy who's got 30 years, how do you get 30 years? And I do exactly what he does.
And you're at how many now?
I'm at 4. February the 15th will be 4 years.
That's good.
And we do the same thing every day. I did the same thing every day with drugs, so why not do the same thing every day with my recovery? It's not something. It's not a cult. I don't have to sit there and throw a freaking rug down and pray every day at a certain time. I just get up in the morning and ask God to direct my thoughts and my actions, and read a couple readings, help somebody if they need it, and that's about it.
You know, we talked a little bit earlier about. I feel like you and my dad had a similar road, and you know, even the dad's got a pacemaker defibrillator. And
Does he really?
Oh yeah, and you know, when he was the first person that I recorded on a podcast, and the next day he went in the hospital, and he's been having some heart issues. Right, he had a few bypasses done several years ago, and 2 of them are have some scar tissue in them. So I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week before Christmas, he passed out again, right? And so they took him to the hospital. He got looked at. They couldn't figure out what's wrong with him, so he's on dialysis too. So I think it must have been Wednesday because he had dialysis, or Tuesday. But anyway, so he goes to dialysis and he goes to the restroom, and they said he was feeling super weak and he passed out, hit his head on the wall, and fell right in front of the bathroom door on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out his pacemaker hit him twice. So both times that he passed out, his heart rate was really high. So his pacemaker hit him and made him pass out. And he's home. He just came home yesterday. So he spent Christmas in there. And when I went to go pee before I came to see you, Bob. So I went to his house, and he was there. So I got to see him a little bit and talk to him for a minute. I'll go see him here shortly. But you know, it's he's been through a lot physically. He's been through a lot as a kid. You know, his dad left when he was, I think, in the 4th grade. He quit school in the 7th grade to take care of grandma and his sisters. So he's been working. You know, he was always the town good guy, but he was into drugs and into drinking. And you know, I told you earlier about him and Mom going to this retreat in Laredo, and that's where he found God. And he literally quit overnight. You know. And it was so weird because you were talking to your daughter about finding sobriety, and it was funny because that's how Dad was with us. You know, all of a sudden, you know, he was a very religious person. He always believed in God, but now he had to give testimony, right? And as kids, we were like, we don't want to go to church. We don't do this. We don't do that. And it's like it's at a certain point for everybody that they hit a certain, you know, a low, or they find something where they need to, or it finally clicks for them, right? And so, you know, Eddie passed away. My brother Eddie passed away a couple years ago, and that's been something that's been real hard for him. And you know, we've all dreamed about Eddie and had things, you know, things that have happened that kind of felt strange, that it kind of reminds you that Eddie's still around. Well, when Dad fell the other day at the dialysis place, we were talking to him, and he said, you know, the nurses came to me because the nurse call went off. He said, I never pulled that string. He said, when I fell, I hit the wall, and I was out. He said, I never pulled that string. You know, so we always joke with him that you know, Eddie pulled the string, Dad. Yeah, I told Eddie's son the other day, he was at the house. I said, hey, I think your daddy just took care of my daddy. You know,
Yeah.
And it's true, man. I think that people that we love, that they still linger around us. You know, I think God's there for us.
Yeah.
And you know, one thing that I noticed Dad did, Dad went from a huge drinker, huge partier, to all of a sudden his life got a lot more simple. You know, he read the Bible, he went to church, he took care of his family, and it was like, you know, we hit on it a little bit earlier when we were talking. You know, we fill our lives with all this stuff, and after a while we just need to cut the bullshit out, right? And then it's a lot easier, you know, to be able to manage life when you have a handful of things that are your priority and that you're focused on, you know. And seeing, you know, this refuse to be a statistic shirt you have on, you know, where'd you get that shirt at?
Jim, my friend Jim got it for me at Club 12. It's a big AA place, and
I mean, I see that, and it's like, it reminds me of where you must have been and where you're at now, man.
Oh yeah.
So how long have you been doing the NA programming?
4 years.
Like teaching?
Well, it's not it's just we hold a meeting, right?
Okay.
Which is just a place for us people to get together and where we get each other and talk about recovery for an hour. as far as working in the field, I started working for the Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse in Corpus May of 2019.
Okay.
And I got my certificate and all my training and all that there. Now I can work anywhere. And we're we're opening a recovery center in Live Oak County in the future. We've got the land. We've got the 501c3 filed with the IRS. We've got the corporations formed, and we got everything. That's just a matter of time, and we're going to offer. It's going to be basically free treatment for people who can't afford it. Serving the underserved is what we want to do, and it'll work strictly off donations, which we'll have to fundraise yearly.
Yeah.
But if you've got, my friend Jim always says that if you got Blue Cross Blue Shield or $1 million, you can go get into any treatment center anywhere. But there's a lot of people that can't afford it, like me. And state funding, it's like somebody gets ready and they may have to wait 4 or 5 weeks, and a lot can happen in 4 or 5 weeks.
That's a long time, man.
Yeah, so we want to make it where we get another option, right? So it's what I'm going to devote my life to. I'll never retire, which is kind of cool, because to me, I heard a book I read the other day said that retiring is telling the universe you have nothing left to offer. And I don't ever want to, this type of work is something that you can do until you can't talk anymore.
So what is it going to look like as far as from the beginning to the end? What is this new facility going to try and provide to people? And are y'all going to be able to do it in phases, like maybe where you get something up and running to where it's just a place to have meetings? In the future, will it be like housing, or what is the goal for you?
Yes, it's just all organic, man. That's what the CEO of or the chairman of our board is the CEO of Pay It Forward San Antonio, which is a big sober living thing on the Haven for Hope campus.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on a few boards that have built these things, and he said they have to happen organically. You can't force it, you know. So the idea, it's changed what it's going to look like. At first, it started out, we had a 70-bed facility donated to us, and that fell through because of the location of it. And so it's ended up, we're just wanting to do more like 12, 15 guys at one time, where they kind of just come in and get them away from everything, and let them get out in the country and take care of some gardening and some animals and talk recovery. And that model seems to be effective. There's one in Elgin called Ranch House Recovery that has a model very similar to that. So, Solstice Recovery and Wimberley is something similar to that. They have a really, really high success rate compared to a lot of the clinical ones. Yeah. Because when I went in, I don't want to listen to some asshole that read about it telling me what I need to do. I wanted to talk to somebody who lived it, that I knew for a fact had struggled to the degree I did and knew how to not struggle no more. And that's ours is going to be peer driven. And so
there will be like a,
not that there's anything wrong with clinical, let me say that too, because there is a place for it, and it's very valuable. Recovery just looks different to, it's like your dad. Your dad didn't need any of it.
Yeah.
He just went straight to God, and that works for some people, right?
Yeah. Me,
it wouldn't have worked. I was so confused about what God was, what God looked like. I still am. I'll never figure it out, and I like that.
Yeah.
I just, my definition of God changes month to month depending on what I'm reading and what I'm feeling and what my meditations and prayer and stuff are giving me. And so I think it's by design. I don't think we're supposed to know. But whatever, if somebody finds Jesus or they become a Christian like your father and that works for them, then by God, do it.
Yeah.
Whatever's keeping him for all these years from drinking is working. So, but it's just a different way of doing it, to where what we do is we don't tell you what God is. That's up to you and God. Y'all will figure it out.
Yeah.
We're just gonna main thing is, first step is we're not gonna use no drugs today, all day. Yeah. We're gonna try to do it again tomorrow, and then we're gonna try to learn some ways to deal with life on life's terms rather than drinking it away. We're gonna have to figure out something. We're gonna have to pray it away. And
I it's funny. I don't mean to laugh, but it's beautiful, because to look at something that simplistic is huge. Mm-hmm. To be able to say we're going to focus on not doing drugs today. We're gonna focus on not doing something today.
Yeah, that's all.
You
Just
know?
today.
And it's like when I sit there and I think about myself personally, and it's like I plan weeks in advance.
Of course you do.
You know, and maybe even a month. But to sit there and to be able to say, we're just gonna focus on today. It's like that's got to be difficult in itself.
So you think about it, Gabe. The future is fantasy. The past is gone. All there really is right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's the eternal now. It's the only thing that will always be here for eternity is right now.
Yeah.
Right? God, one of the readings I said is God, if I get out in the future or I get far in the past, God tells me I'll be here waiting for you. And when you get through, because that's not where I am.
Yeah.
Dropping down on a Wednesday in front of my daughter, waking up on a Monday in a hospital, not having any idea what happened, kind of changed my perspective on planning too far ahead.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have mattered anything I planned up past that day wouldn't have mattered down. So it's hard. I mean, it's a daily grind to not do that. To trust God, to trust the process, to trust that everything's going to be okay. Because I mean, how many times have you prepared to fight a T-Rex and you got around the corner and it was a gecko? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost every time. We always make it out. I think it's hardwired in us to prepare to fight something bigger than it actually is. So you're ready,
Yeah.
Maybe back when we were cavemen, I don't know, but there's something that makes us want to get ready to fight something, and it never is as bad as we make it out to be.
Yeah.
How many times have you prepared for that argument with somebody? Man, when that son of a bitch says this, I'm going to say this and this and that, and you get there and they go, "What's up?" And that's it.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Fuck! I spent a goddamn year and a half preparing for that shit," and he just said, "What's up?"
It's funny. I have an issue with anxiety a lot, and so I was super excited about coming to talk to you. And when I was coming back this way from George West, I started getting real nervous.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I haven't talked to Bob in forever. What are we going to talk about? Or, what's going to be like? I always need, my wife gets upset because I always need to know everything, and it's all got to be structured. Like even this place, just walking in, it's a covered area, it's open air, we're in a park. Typically I like to see where I'm at. I like to be set up. To me, I've got to have everything structured. And so that's something that I always have a difficult time with is being able to let go of all that stuff.
It's boring, man, doing that shit.
It is. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But it's kind of how I'm wired, and so to be able to come and then I pulled around and I saw your truck and I started getting a little, I saw the place and I was like, okay, so my stress level starts coming down, my anxiety starts coming down,
Yeah.
and then we start, shooting the shit, setting this stuff up, and anxiety's gone.
So they're back to where you said, how do you handle it when you hit the bottom a lot like that? You're there and you just move on. You just live. You know what I mean? It's survival. We make the bottom out to be a lot worse than it is.
Yeah. I like that you said that earlier too, because you're right. Our imagination, our mind always says, man, this is going to be the worst thing ever. And it's when you're in the middle of it, you're like, this is manageable.
We make up. There's a lady that she's got a husband that's got 30 years, and there are mentors, and she said that drug addicts and alcoholics make up more shit. Just make these scenarios up that never happen, and you prepare for it, and you're, God damn it, and it never happens. And after a while, Gabe, I don't know, man. I'm 55. I'm gonna be 56 in January, and start carving away all the unnecessary shit, that's a waste of my time, man. That's a waste of my day. As I get older, you said at Christmas, like I was sitting at Christmas, we had it back over here at Mom's old house where we live now, and I think, man, that's 20 years ago. My mom was my age sitting here in this house. I was Sam's age. Man, that was a fast 20 years.
Yeah.
Like super fast 20 years. So, I think we all just want to be happy. And however that looks, however you get there, just, it when you're there, right? You know what it feels like to be content. Hustle and bustle and all that shit, dude, because I've never missed a meal, I've worried about money, I've worried about this, I've worried about losing things, and I've lost things. I've watched tow trucks tow away vehicles that I thought I'd die if they did it, and I hid it for months and from the repo guy, and I've had all these things happen, yet here I sit today talking to you, and it doesn't matter. All that shit, none of it matters. Has nothing to do with what we're doing here today. So how big a deal was it? You know what I mean?
I think that's part of us being able to recognize happiness.
Yeah.
You know, and that I think sometimes I struggle with, and I'm sure the people do too, is you always think, man, I can be happier, and it's like, hang on, enjoy the happiness that you're in right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where we screw ourselves sometimes, because we keep thinking there's something more, and it's like that porch swing song, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's the shit.
It's all came down to memories, and so it's that's what recovery has done for me, and I talk about it a lot, and I know people that aren't in it. I don't care. It's I have, like my beautiful little wife says, I'm happy for no good reason. I don't need a reason outside to be happy on the inside, and Richard Rohr, he's a Franciscan monk. We read his readings every day, and he says that life it's order, disorder, and then reorder. We grow up.
I like that.
And then that's what happens. Something statistically in your mid-30s happens that knocks you down, and then you rebuild, and it looks different, right? So the order is when you're a child growing up, and then you start your ego gets involved, and you start trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you start trying to look good, and you start trying to worry about this, worry about that, got to get a bigger house, got to get this, got to get that. And then something will happen to put it all into perspective, and then you're angling back towards God, you know?
Yeah.
Because I watched my 7-year-old granddaughter. She could give a shit what's going on Fox News right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She got a Nintendo Switch, and life is fucking grand.
You know what's funny is like this moment that we're in right now. You know, there's a little creek next to us. There's kids on a swing. There's a breeze in the air. It's kind of overcast. The sun's out, and it's like, this is the good stuff, Bob.
Yeah, look at that old bridge. There's like that old pump. Rather than throwing it away, they brought it from Ray Point, and they put it across the slough, and put lights on it, and there it is. That's old Bob right there.
That's old Bob right there. Ugly and pretty.
I don't need the light. Yeah, all fucked off looking, but still of some use.
Yeah.
They had to put a new bridge on it, or new wood on it, but hey, whatever.
No.
Hey, I miss Eddie. Man, I tell you what, when you talk about Eddie, your brother, we went to high school together, and we used to give each other, me and him and Robert Arceba and Kelly Stapp, man, God, we'd talk shit to each other. But it continued on football season.
Sure.
When football season comes, him bad-mouthing my Cowboys and talking shit.
Man, he loved that.
I know, man. And so every year I think about the bullshit me and Eddie would run it on Facebook back at each other, man. He was a smiley guy, man. Y'all all are. Y'all all got your dads. Your mom was always quiet and just sweet. Yeah. You know what I mean? But your dad was always he was quiet too, but he was just always smiling, jolly. You know what I mean? Y'all got that jolly disposition about you. All y'all do.
You know, it's funny because Dad's always been the nucleus of our family. My dad had 5 kids from 3 different women. Mm-hmm. And so we always kind of make a joke because when a husband and wife typically split up, the kids go with the mom. Mm-hmm. Well, in Dad's case, Dad took the kids. So Dad raised all the kids. And so Dad's always been the nucleus for everybody. You know, my mom is my mom, and my siblings have other mothers. And so, as far as siblings went, Eddie was always the nucleus, right? And he was the big brother. Mm-hmm. And so everything revolved around Eddie. Eddie was everybody loved Eddie, and everybody related to Eddie. And, you know, you may go 6 months without talking to Joe or Barbara or Vidal, but you talk to Eddie every week, you know? And so when we lost Eddie, I always had a problem because initially, I think when you lose somebody, it's like I got to replace this thing. I got to replace
Yeah.
this person. And man, I struggled with it because even hanging out with my siblings, it was difficult because he wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
So I remember in the year that Eddie had died, we went and got a condo in the valley. We were going to spend time together. We were going to throw some of his ashes in the water, and I struggled with it bad because it reminded and I still struggle with it because it reminded me of what I didn't have. Right. And I needed to focus on what I still had. And then I was still trying to replace him with something, you know?
Yeah.
And so now here we are, I guess maybe 2 years down the road. And it's kind of like I'm slowly starting to realize it's okay to not replace him.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same. It doesn't feel as good as it did, but it's okay to not replace him, you know? And, time goes on and we sometimes we talk in Eddie in past tense, but we typically talk about him as if he's just here in a different form.
He is.
And, my dad was telling me, we talked about the pulling of the nurse's cord. And my dad said, sometimes I feel like he's there. He said, sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'll feel somebody poke me on the side. And I'll look and nobody's there.
He's there.
And, man, I tell you, that was a huge blow. And you talk about being able to figure out what's important and what's not. It was like when you lost Eddie, we were just burning 100 miles an hour, living life, working too much, not spending enough time with family. And then Eddie died, and it was like, it really says, hey, refocus. What's important.
Disorder time, wasn't it?
Disorder time, man. We all have a good relationship with each other, and I remember the Thursday before Eddie died, Dad called me. He said, hey, have you talked to Barbara Joe, Eddie Vidal? I said, no, I haven't, Dad. I've been working a lot. I said, I get off at noon tomorrow. It was a Friday. I said, I get off at noon tomorrow. And when I get out of work, I'll call everybody on the way home. All right. And so that was Thursday evening. And so I go to work Friday, and it's about 7:20, and I got my little Friday football shirt on with my nephew's numbers on it and stuff. And my brother Joe calls, and he says, hey, Eddie died. And for me, I'm wired a little different, right? So I'm like, I'm going to drive to, he was working in Kennedy. I said, I'm going to drive to Kennedy, Joe. Let me go make sure. You hear all the time somebody died and they just got in a car wreck or some shit. I don't know. So I didn't freak out. I was like, I'm going to drive to Kennedy. I didn't know where I was going in Kennedy. I figured I'll get to Kennedy, I'll go to the police station and see if anybody knows anything, So I'm driving down, I'm calling my wife, my sister's calling, my brother Vidal, talking to him, and then Dad calls, and Dad's on his way to dialysis. And he says, did you hear about Eddie? I said, yeah, Dad, I heard, but I said, I'm going to Kennedy. I'm going to go see what's going on. I said, my thing is, and I always try and remind people of this and myself, I always say, don't worry till it's time to worry, right? So I'm driving to Kennedy, and I'm probably 20 minutes out, and Vidal calls me. And he says, hey, go to the funeral home. He says, I got a buddy that works the ambulance. He called me, and this is where we're at. I said, all right. So I get to the funeral home, and I walk in, and my first thing is, where's my brother? I want to see my brother. And so the lady there is kind of like, well, we can't let you see him, blah, blah, blah. So the guy who's working there, I guess he's the helper or whatever. He's walking back from this barn that's across the parking lot with Vidal, and he tells me he'll take me to see Eddie. And so Vidal is like, be ready, because he looks different, So at this point, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I want to see my brother, And so the guy takes me into this barn, and it's kind of, I don't know what I was expecting, but you walk by and there's these folding tables and these chairs and lawnmower equipment, and then there's 8x8 cooler,
Wow.
And so he opens a cooler, and I walk in, and Eddie's still on the ambulance gurney. And, his shirt's open a little bit. He's got his necklace on. He's still warm to the touch, So I sat there with him for a while, and just was talking to him. My wife was in the cooler with me, and stared at him for as long as I could because I knew, hey, I'm not gonna be able to see him again.
Yeah, man.
And so finally, we kind of wrap up and walk out, and Dad told me to call him. So I call Dad, and he says in Spanish, he says, "Is it true?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, Eddie's gone." And man, Dad just starts blubbering, crying,
Man.
and it's heartbreaking, man. He's sitting in dialysis. I know he's by himself, and he just lost his oldest.
Yeah.
And so we go to Beeville, and it's funny because you get to Beeville, to the funeral home, because they're gonna bring him to Beeville, Galloway's, and it's kind of like, hey, we're gonna bury your brother, or we're gonna do this for your brother. We need about 15 grand. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, wait a second. I literally just saw my brother. He's still warm, and you need 15. But that's the nature of the beast, right? That's the world we live in.
Yep.
And so, funny thing happened was, I told my sister, I said, he got us again.
Fucking Eddie.
Fucking Eddie. Anytime we would go to a restaurant, we used to ride Harleys together, right? And so anytime we'd go to a restaurant, we'd order food, we'd sit down, we'd have drinks, order beers, whatever. Eddie would always go, hey, I'm going to go to the restroom. So he'd order another round of beers. He'd say, I'm going to go to the restroom. And he'd leave the restaurant. And then he'd call you. He's like, hey, man, I'm 3 miles down the road.
God, that sounds like fucking Eddie.
What do you
dude.
mean you're 3 miles down the road? You just ordered another round of beers. Yeah, pick it up. And so you pay all his bill. So I looked at my sister, and I called his work. I said, he doesn't have any sort of retirement. He doesn't. Nope. He doesn't have anything. And I looked at my sister. I said, he got us again.
Fucking Eddie, dude. God, that is so. How perfect is that? I doubt he thought that out, but he was so good at being like that. He probably didn't have to think it out. It just happened.
Oh, I'll tell you some more funny stuff, man. Is at the funeral. Well, this isn't funny, but at the funeral, Eddie made a lot of mistakes, man. He made a lot of mistakes. He did a lot of foolish things, and growing up, it was kind of like Eddie needs to make more time for his kids or his wife or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He filled the church up twice in 2 days, and full of people that I had no clue who they were.
And that's something.
And they all said the same thing. Your brother always made time for me. Your brother gave me a job. Your brother did this, And it's like, here are hundreds of people, that the whole time I thought Eddie was just being an idiot. But it's like Eddie never didn't make time for other people.
How about that shit?
And so I sat there and I looked at my brother Vidal and Joe, and I was like, shit, maybe Eddie was a saint. Who knows? But I'll tell you this. When we were digging the hole for him, because we buried him with our grandma, we built a box. We put his ashes in there, and we're digging a hole, and we hit a tree root.
I remember seeing y'all doing that on Facebook.
We hit a tree root, and we were like, fucking Eddie.
Again, I remember y'all posted something about that. He got us again with a root.
Got us again with a tree root. So I took that tree root and broke it up, and I made a cross out of it, and we nailed it to his box.
Oh, man.
But my sisters told me before that people have called her, and they hear the last name Molina, and they say, did you know Eddie Molina? And she's like, yeah, he's my brother. And they say, he was a good guy. He gave me a job.
What's that saying? People won't remember the things you did for them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's...
and that was Eddie, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, we look back and we always thought, hey, he could have done some things differently, but he didn't, and it doesn't matter anymore.
It happened exactly like it was supposed to.
It happened exactly the way it was supposed to, man.
And so Eddie, I don't know, man. I firmly believe that we come in with a plan when we hop into this world, and I think he did what he was supposed to do, and he may come back and do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's people can believe. That's the cool thing about God. I think God doesn't care how you look at him, personally.
Yeah.
I think Eddie was he made people feel good. I mean, how many people can stiff you on a bill that over and over, and it just makes you laugh?
Over and over.
Yeah, and then you don't get mad.
You don't get mad.
It's like, that fucker, man, I can't believe I let him do it. Who would do it again? Eddie. That's who would do it again.
We were at Barbara's once watching UFC, and she said, "I'll get it, but you both you owe me $20." So he put $20 on the table. I put $20 on the table, and the fights ended real quick. I think it was Conor McGregor knocked somebody out. And we're like, okay, it's late. We're both leaving for San Antonio. He walks by our table and he takes all $40. He took mine too. So she calls me yelling at me because I stole the money. And I'm like, I didn't take it. Eddie's got it. And I ended up having to pay her back. I don't know that I ever did. But, man, he was always doing it. He'd borrow stuff and never bring it back. Or he'd ruin things. And it was like, oh, this guy. But he had that personality, man. You just loved him.
Just smiled through it all, man.
Oh, it was terrible. Well, Bob, I appreciate your time, man. We're pushing about an hour and a half.
Wow, that was fast.
Let's give some people some information on where they can find you, where they can find the NA facility. And
Every Saturday night at 7 p.m. at the Cowboy Church in George West, we have our NA meeting.
You got an address for that place?
Nah, it's out there, the Cowboy Church on 37.
Oakville, right?
Yeah, it's between Oakville and it's between 799. No. Yeah, 799 Oakville, closer to 799. You can't miss it. It's the big Cowboy Church off 37. And you know, look, if you're struggling and you need some help, you can hit me up on Facebook Messenger. That's probably the easiest way. You know, I'll see it or just somebody knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, or you can message me on Facebook too or whatever. I'll point you to Bob.
And that's just what I do now, man, and that's what I want to do forever. And yeah, I'm not hard to find. Well,
I appreciate your time, brother.
Hey, man, this was fun. I haven't done. Used to do a lot of this on the radio.
Yeah.
It's usually 10, 15 minutes, and it was always talking about shit I didn't care to talk about. This was fun, man.
I appreciate your time, Bob.
Congratulations on your podcast, dude.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
I like that. I mean, that's who would have thunk that, to do that? Fuck, I wouldn't have.
Well, let me know when you want to do it again. I'd love it. I enjoyed myself, and we'll make time to hook up again.
All right, brother.
Appreciate you, Bob.
All right, good.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.